Welcome back to another edition of What's Next? Living Longer, Better, Smarter. Today, how AI can help you. This episode is made possible by GetSetUp, your online platform that celebrates every older adult, offering opportunities for physical, mental, and social growth. The mission? Enabling participation in communities with a renewed sense of joy, purpose, and fulfillment. Learn more at GetSetUp.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Mary Furlong. Hi, Mary. Hope you're having a great start to the spring.
Hi, Fred. Oh, it's my favorite season, and our garden is blooming, and it's really a wonderful time of year. And we have a busy podcast schedule and a wonderful podcast today. It seems like AI is really blossoming too.
It does. It's a good way to put it. And we'll be growing a new spotlight segment everyone should stay tuned for. You don't want to miss that. First, we want to welcome our good friend, the co-founder of GetSetUp, Lawrence Kosick. Hi, Lawrence.
Fred, Mary, it's great to be here as always. Thanks for having me.
I love the way you innovate. So it's wonderful to see all that GetSetUp has become. A dynamic learning platform for older adults focused on such a wide range of subjects and interests. And now you're helping everyone with AI. So let's talk about that.
Sure, we'd be happy to. I mean, I think we think that about this as sort of the next evolution of interesting technology that we can both use to make learning easier and richer for older adults, but also unlock a whole new sort of world of opportunities. I think we understand that there's some security risks and fear around, is this safe, is this not safe, and a lot of it really comes down to teaching older adults how to use these types of tools, getting comfortable using these types of tools, and understanding the possibilities. And so as an education platform, we feel like this is yet just another technology that's really going to be important. So we need to be teaching and empowering our older adults to use it.
I understand that lots of folks in my demographic are pretty hesitant when it comes to this technology. So, and there are two things I think that you're doing. You have the tool that, and we'll be taking a look at that, allowing people to use AI on your site to find out more about GetSetUp. But then there's the whole issue of learning about AI in general and using it in a broader sense too, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the place we probably started was, almost a year and a half ago. We thought about sort of AI and its different implications, and the first thing we did was develop a bunch of courses and curriculum about how to use it safely, right? So how to get comfortable with it, and helping people sort of be vigilant, understand how it can be used for scams, but other technology, internet, mobile phones, all of these other sorts of things all have risks if you don't truly understand them. So the first place was teach older adults sort of how to use these tools carefully and safely. And then once you do that, there becomes some level of comfort. And then you can now introduce, okay, well, what are the possibilities? How can I use this to learn new things, to find new opportunities, to access resources I couldn't find before? And that is sort of the evolution that we're now on today, which is you keep teaching folks how to use this safely, reduce the hesitancy, but now introduce the wonderful opportunities that in the ways that this can be used to augment our already sort of live and interactive peer-to-peer learning. We think about everything through a sort of learning and discovery lens, because that's what we do here at GetSetUp. And AI, for all the reasons I'm sure we'll discuss on the podcast today, is a wonderful tool to enhance those.
So I like how you're using AI to help people discover the resources within the GetSetUp platform too.
Well, if you think about where we came from, Mary, like we've built a platform based on teaching the things that older adults either want to learn or need to learn. And so if you follow the suggestions that we get every day for the types of classes that we ought to be teaching, Yes, people want to learn how to use technology and people want to learn how to exercise and stay healthy at home. They want to learn job skills. And AI is a really important part, or can be a really important part in helping do that. The question is how, and those are the sorts of things that we've started to teach and include in and around the platform so that older adults can get more comfortable with what it is and how it can be used.
And on my team, I hire a lot of older adults, and I'm beginning to see them use AI in their workflow. So it's become a part of the work experience. So how do you overcome their resistance? And tell us about the kinds of classes you're offering.
So we'll start with the resistance piece first, right? The resistance piece for any of us usually comes from something we don't fully understand, and so education, classes, Q&As, articles, all of these different things that we can do to help people understand what it is and what it isn't is really, really important. And so we've done over the last year plus a lot of classes to help people understand, what are the scams, how is it being used inappropriately, how to spot those things. But once people learn those things and become comfortable, we can then present sort of the wonderful opportunities in the way that it can be used to enhance their lives. And the ways are numerous because, if we think about sort of Google as a tool and a user interface that we all understand, you can go and type something in, and it's a wonderful retrieval mechanism. It'll go find whatever documents and information it believes are most relevant to the search term that you put in. So it's a wonderful retrieval mechanism. AI takes that to a whole new level, which is it can not only retrieve data from multiple sources, but it can then analyze it and synthesize it and put it in a form that it believes will be most helpful to you, Fred, to you, Mary, to myself. So if we ask it a question about exercise or about fitness or about travel, it can not only go and look at those most relevant sources, it can then combine them and deliver it in a format or a recommendation that it thinks might be most useful. And that is a level of utility that extends far beyond sort of the basic Google that we've gotten accustomed to.
Tell us what your thoughts are before I ask you specifically about what you're doing there with Helen, about how fast this is all happening. Lawrence, to most of us, it seems like, wow, 10 minutes ago, this wasn't here.
Surprisingly fast, hard to keep up, which I think makes our job, even more challenging, but more fun because we're up for the challenge. But yes, it's iterating incredibly fast. And when you look at sort of the major players, right? So OpenAI, which is ChatGPT. You have Facebook's or Meta's product called Llama. You have Google's product that's called Gemini. These are all referred to as sort of large language models, right? And they are sort of the big processors of all of this information. And for all intents and purposes, they're very similar, but they're in a real race to index and process as much information as they can and use AI to offer it to us in a helpful form. So there is a real rush there. And I think because they are accelerating so very fast, it's making the innovation that we see at our level record-breaking pace. Like never seen anything like this. Whatever couldn't be done last week can be done this week or will be done next week, right? Yeah. So it is absolutely amazing the speed at which this is evolving.
So you have this AI assistant of your own on the platform now, and as we said, her name is Helen. Tell us about it.
Yep. So we looked at our experience of teaching older adults over the last 5 years, and we said, well, wow, we've run thousands of classes and millions of minutes of data around the audio and video learnings of older adults. So we really should understand the vocabulary that's best in a learning environment for this demographic. We should understand the empathy. We should understand the use cases, the products, the services, the programs that they're trying to learn and trying to access. And that helps us really tune Helen so that she is a older adult specific AI assistant. So she can be more helpful in the way she makes recommendations. So the way we've looked at using AI to make it most helpful is around learning, right? And so when you arrive at GetSetUp, an older adult can be welcomed. Welcome, Lawrence. What would you like to learn today? And Helen can actually answer a question for me if that's all I need. She can recommend different classes. She can recommend articles. She can help me with deeper answers than just a specific class. And so the great thing for us is that it allows us yet another modality to offer older adults so they can learn in any way they want to learn. So instead of us just hoping everybody's going to want or need a 20-minute or 30-minute class, they may just want to ask a quick question. If they do, we can help them there. If they need to be directed into a class or to an article that helps them better understand the subject matter, Helen can do all of that, and she can do it using older adult specific vocabulary and empathy, which is, we think, really, really important.
Let's take a quick look at how this works.
So when learners arrive at GetSetUp, they're going to increasingly see a page that'll look sort of substantially like this, where Helen will appear at the top and she'll welcome you by name and ask what she can help you with. And for most folks, it will be help in finding a class or learning about something new. And so there's obviously, if you have a question, you can just simply type in the question here. There's some prompts or suggestions that we know to be popular. And if that's easier than typing it out or gets you to your destination faster, you can click on any one of these. And then, of course, we have, as usual, a list of all of the classes that have been curated for the learner. So they can obviously go straight to the class if they don't want to ask Helen a question. So you can ask a question right here. So have you met Helen? She's our AI assistant and she can do amazing things. And so we've really positioned this so people can try and experiment and ask Helen whatever question they might want to ask. But if we decided we just wanted to pick one of the suggested questions in the prompts below, we could say, click on find a balance class for me, right? And so Helen is looking across our curriculum and all of our classes offered. And so she said, here's some excellent classes focused on improving balance that you might find helpful. And so she's now suggesting links for classes that people could watch now. They can book and watch it later. And you can see there's a whole host of classes with their descriptions. And you can see on the right side here, there's also related classes. You can click right into live classes. And there's also, you can find articles. If somebody wants to read something before they take a class, there's also articles there. Now, once Helen's done that, she also suggests some other questions, and these can be nice because you don't have to type as much, but how can exercise make moving around safer at home? What balance exercises are best for avoiding falls at home? And if you click on any of these, it pre-populates so that you don't have to type. And then Helen will provide a older adult specific answer. And she will also, again, recommend more classes aligned with that search. Right? So it's helping older adults find the classes, the articles, and the curriculum a little faster and also get a little bit more information, right? But this could be true and this could be used for a number of topics. I'll ask Helen, do you have classes on travel? And so Helen will look at all of our travel information, curriculum, classes, and she will recommend essential trips for smooth international travel, travel-specific products, staying healthy while traveling. And so these are fast ways for people to get more information on classes and the relevant articles on the right side, classes and articles if they want to dig in a little deeper. Now, this is where it can actually get interesting because you'd say, I'm planning a trip to Italy. Can you help me? So Helen's going to think a little bit, and then she's going to help us think about trip to Italy. So she says, planning a trip to Italy sounds exciting. Italy has much to offer from its rich history and vibrant culture. She gives a quick overview with some helpful links, a bunch of our classes related to safe travel or traveling to Italy. And so now we'll get a little more specific. Can you build me a 7-day travel plan to Rome with restaurants, hotels, and museum recommendations? So now I'm making Helen work a little harder because she's got to think about all of that travel information. She's got to combine it with restaurant, hotel, and museum recommendations. And so here you see day one, arrive and explore the historic center. Here's a couple of possible hotel recommendations. Here's a restaurant recommendation, and it's planned out day by day. So there's not only an itinerary, it has hotel, it has museums, and it has food, and it's all strategically sort of located and organized in a format that might be helpful for an older adult. And you could say, I'm traveling, my typing's not so good, but traveling alone and on a budget and prefer restaurants and hotels with no stairs or fewer stairs, right? As an older adult may be thinking about, right? So Helen is starting to think using sort of all of our perspective around context and conditions older adults might think about. She's looking to think about accessibility, convenience, and reminds us if she doesn't know about accessibility, she recommends calling ahead to confirm, which is that reminder is also helpful. And so you can see that she's now starting to think through and help with things that an older adult might think about. So for example, slow travel, spend less, but have a richer experience, may be helpful for somebody who's on a budget. Finding senior discounts, well, that's pretty helpful because it sort of fast tracks somebody who may be on a budget. Essential trips for smooth international travel. So anyways, this is an example in the travel space, but we can do this for finance. You can do it across any subject, technology, but it shows you how we can start with classes and then turn it into an experience that somebody might be trying to solve for in their real life, but do it in a way that addresses the context and things that older adults might be thinking about, like mobility, safety, I'm traveling alone, budget, and think about how to present that information in a helpful way.
And I guess this can all learn your preferences and such too, and learn about you and make things even more personal as you go along.
Over time, that's exactly what happens, Fred, is that Helen will better understand personal preferences, and we'll add voice to this and more video, and it'll become sort of a richer, more integrated tool. But we thought that this was a good place to start, because the one thing we have learned at GetSetUp is a lot of these tools have a lot of features and functionality. Don't start with all of them at once. Don't try to overwhelm the learner. Just get people trying this and feeling comfortable with it. Maybe that's around articles and classes and basic information. And when they do, then start helping them with more expanded use cases like I just showed around, now you've learned about travel. Let's think about travel planning. Let's think about museums. Let's think about restaurants. Let's think about an itinerary. It can do all of those things very easily.
And does it remember the pathways the learner travels? So would there be a customized history profile?
Yeah, one of the things we've learned, this is a great question, Mary. One of the things that we learned through testing is the learners wanted to be able to go back and check the history of the other things they typed in. And so we were deliberating, well, do we need to save this information, or will the learner not want it? And we can just get rid of it. And your question's a good one, because overwhelmingly, They wanted to be able to see, the questions they had asked previously and the previous answers, and in many cases build on that. So that was something we discussed, and then we learned, through testing the answer.
Lawrence, how many learners are you serving now in GetSetUp?
Well, specific to AI, we're rolling the AI out in sort of a smaller, more careful way as we test it and fully understand how people are going to want and need to use this. But more broadly, there's 1 to 2 million US users almost monthly. That's a domestic number. It's obviously larger when we think more internationally. But we've been trying to really focus on US because of our partnerships with the governments, the agencies, and the health plans. But the international usage continues to intrigue us as we think about future opportunities. But the traffic is really interesting. We're really trying very hard to think about sort of quality over quantity, because as you offer tools like this, they can get very expensive very quickly, because an older adult can spend quite a lot of time chatting with Helen, which is something that we as a business have to think about. Well, okay, so how do we offset that cost and pay for these wonderful interactions as they start to become really sticky and really engaging? So it's going to be fun for us to think through, because this is going to be really, really wonderful from a partnership perspective, because what we've talked about here today is how users can use this, but Helen can be tuned for partners. So for example, we could go to a state partner and say, what are your priority programs in New York State or Michigan or Washington? They may say, oh, we really need help with older adults finding, discovering, and learning our SNAP nutrition program or our Medicare, Medicaid education program. And we can tune Helen to showcase those programs inside a state's learning channel, so that if somebody in New York is coming out of a nutrition class and New York has said, hey, SNAP nutrition is a priority for us, we want more of our older adults to discover this, Helen can say, oh, I've seen you just take a nutrition class. Would you like to see if you're eligible for a nutrition program in the state of New York? So those are really wonderful ways where we're going to be able to tune it for partners so that we can showcase their priorities, their language, their programs when they want to need us to. And that's a wonderful solution for health plans as well, because we all have health insurance that's very deep and very complicated. And once a year, we get these annual notice of changes and these explanations of benefits. And Helen can read and summarize these 100-page PDFs and tell us exactly what our benefits are and how to find them, how to access them, and sign up for them. That's a wonderful use case that is very helpful to an older adult.
So tell us more about what AI may mean for GetSetUp in the future. What are some of the plans?
So I think that we tend to look at the needs of the learners, and we talk to the learners obviously every day, because we're an interactive learning platform and we can understand where people are encountering challenges. We get a good idea as to what they want and need to learn. And then we pay attention to the more external signals, which is, the job market, the healthcare market, the things that older adults really do need to learn to be sort of stay healthy independently at home longer, right? And then how to apply AI as sort of an adjunct to the peer-to-peer live interactive learning that we're already doing. So we don't think about it as a replacement for anything. We think about it as a very complementary component. So for example, if you think about some of the limitations of a live interactive class, you can have 20 people, they come to a class, you have one teacher. The one teacher can only answer one question at a time. Helen can answer as many questions. She can answer 10 questions at a time, right? So if Fred has a question, he puts it in the chat. Mary can ask one. I can ask one. We can all be getting answers at the same time. So you overcome a lot of scalability issues and service issues and provide a better experience for older adults, because it's very likely that if you're teaching a class that has 20, 30, 50 people, there's going to be a lot of questions, and there's limitations around what one guide or one teacher can answer. But with the help of Helen, she can answer these questions, simultaneously, specific to each of us. She can even translate them if one of us wants to get the answers translated into French, Italian, Korean. She can do those sorts of things. So it introduces a whole level of service that we weren't able to offer before, and that's what's wonderful about this.
And there have been companies that are using AI that we've spoken to help combat the loneliness epidemic and such that people can actually talk to and have chats with. Do you see that becoming part of what you're doing at GetSetUp?
We do, although it's never our primary focus has always been learning. But we've often said over the last 5 years, people come for the learning and they stay for the socialization. And that's because when you have an interactive platform, people can ask questions, they connect, they make friends, they come back and take these classes together. And we are seeing whether or not they're talking to another learner, talking to a guide, or talking to Helen, the interactions are naturally longer, which we think is a good thing because there's more engagement, there's more retention. And as long as, it's a learning type environment, that's a wonderful thing. So we have seen conversations with Helen, start off as, an initial question, and they can go for 20 minutes, they can go for 30 minutes, they can go for 10 minutes. We've had a couple go for 2 hours. So clearly they're talking about all sorts of other questions and learning about other topics. But to me, that seems to be one possibility here that I think others are focusing quite specifically on. We just see that as a nice byproduct of interactive learning.
And the website is getsetup.io.
How can we find out more about Helen, Lawrence? And how did Helen get her name?
I think Helen got her name. It might have been some sort of a vote, is my best guess, because there was some other names suggested, and I think they were all good ones. But I think that we chose Helen because we thought it was fun, friendly, generationally sort of correct and appropriate. So yeah, we chose Helen. And
isn't she kind of a mythical guide to Helen, kind of guides us into different things? I love this. I love what you're doing here. And it's a real exciting, really helpful, very market leading and friendly. Very few places older adults can go and find AI in an easy to understand way.
Completely agree, because if we don't tune this or optimize this for older adults, then there's really no difference between what we're offering and what they can go do on, a Chat GPT or a Gemini. But we think that there is a optimization that can be done around vocabulary and empathy and use cases that's really quite specific to this demographic. And it makes the tool so much better and so much more relatable.
Actually, you really informed the whole industry about how to speak to older adults with all the information that you're gathering. You're gathering a lot of insight and you're building community, which I've always done my whole career. And I love that this has become a community for people, enhanced by AI and Helen.
Yes, and we've always said, it takes a village, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because our collective goal is to help as many older adults, or empower as many as we can, to live the life that they want, need, and deserve to live. And that's a really big problem and a really big opportunity. And so we're going to need to bring all of the tools and all of the technology and all of the people power we can to do this. But it's worth it, because this is the fastest growing portion of our population.
So very eye-opening. Thank you so much for taking the time with us. And thanks for the amazing work you and the team are doing.
Oh, thank you very much for having me today. And I think it's always fun to sort of share what we're working on and answer great questions, because I think, older adults have a wonderful opportunity to use AI in amazing ways. And as long as we also help them understand how to use it safely and securely, it does open up so many interesting opportunities. And I think we were just getting started.
Mary, our next guest is another friend who has been bringing AI into the homes of older adults through a remarkable companion robot called ElliQ. Dor Skuler is the CEO and co-founder of Intuition Robotics. Hi, Dor.
Hi, Fred. Hi, Mary. Two of my favorite people. So happy to talk to you again.
Thank you. We've been with you for almost a decade, so you're the perfect guest to talk about AI and how it can help older adults. Look, let's refresh everyone about the company and what you've been creating.
Sure. So at Intuition Robotics, we built ElliQ. You can see her behind me over here. And ElliQ is an AI companion for older adults. Her goal is to predominantly help people that live alone or spend the majority of their day by themselves. It's proven to be remarkably effective at reducing loneliness and improving health outcomes, while also increasing the quality of relationship with loved ones.
Let's take a look at some video that really describes what ElliQ does.
Meet the new and stylish ElliQ 3. And this is me, Gerald. I'm 82 years old, and I live with a robot. ElliQ 3 is designed for people like me.
And me.
And me.
And me.
She's convenient and easy to use. She's lighter, smaller, faster, and more capable than I could have ever imagined. They still haven't given her arms to help me with the cooking or doing the dishes, but who needs arms when she's got all this technology? She has cutting-edge artificial intelligence to help me with everything from cooking to playing games with the grandkids to reminding me to take my meds.
She's the perfect partner for people like me who want to age independently. We share virtual experiences, and she makes me smile as bright as her lights. And most importantly, I trust her. I trust ElliQ.
The possibilities are endless with ElliQ, no matter how much or how little experience I have with technology. Who knew the golden years would be the best time to make friends with a robot?
And what's truly astounding is that the first people to live with and build long-term relationships with an AI are folks like me in their 80s and 90s. What a time to be alive.
Congratulations again, Dor. Tell us what you can about the progress you made in making ElliQ available and how you've employed some of the latest AI tools.
Sure. So ElliQ is available commercially for the last 3 years. It took us about 7 years of work to get to that point. And she's available both through government programs like the State Office for the Aging or the area agencies for the aging across the United States, but also to caregivers and the older adults themselves on our website, ElliQ.com. And in fact, just this January, we launched a caregiver solution that gives a lot more tools and a lot more control to the caregivers of the older adult. We use AI up and down the stack. This product is, firstly, I think it's pretty remarkable that it's the first product out there that people actually live with an AI and build a long-term relationship that's built on trust and delivers impact. And to me, it's incredible that the first humans that live with an AI are people in their 80s and 90s and 70s also, and not, geeks in Silicon Valley. Nothing against them, but AI is going to change humanity. We can all imagine a future where we have AI sidekicks and companions and friends, but the first of us that are experiencing that are the older adults. In fact, some very interesting statistics, I think. The average ElliQ user talks to her 32 times a day, even a year in. We all hear about how complicated and hard it is to engage this population, and people claim that this population doesn't know how to use technology. That is just not true. When you build the right product, which is based on their needs and designed for them and with them, it actually is possible to see unbelievable engagement and unbelievable success of adoption. But you asked about AI. So in order to create this deeper relationship, we can't just use ChatGPTs and so on. I mean, we use large language models and so on underneath the hood, but there were a few things we had to create that didn't exist in the world. The first is this is the first AI that is proactive. That means that the older adult doesn't need to remember a prompt or even ask ElliQ a question or anything. She sees them in the morning and just starts talking to them. She'll say, "Hey, Mary, so good to see you. Good morning. How did you sleep? How are you doing? What are your plans for today?" She also remembers everything you ever spoke to her about. So the more you talk, the deeper the relationship, the more she can recollect from previous memories. So all of these interactions are highly personalized. And she's goal oriented. So when she speaks to someone, it's not just chit chat. It's in order to help them meet very, very specific goals. We actually launched a wellness coach program. Over half of our customers are part of that program, and over 75% of them complete or exceed their goals around sleep, around physical exercise, cognitive training, hydration, nutrition, and stress reduction.
That's great. Now tell us how the caregivers are using it.
Yeah, so until recently, we really only cared about the older adult. And then we started getting approached by caregivers. We always had an app called ElliQ Connect where the family could do video conferencing and share pictures and so on, but we didn't provide a lot of value add for the caregiver. And as we started getting to know that persona a lot more, we found that actually ElliQ can be kind of like AI aid worker that you bring into the family, trusted by the older adult, agency over the data stays with the older adult, but empowering the caregiver. So they can set reminders and medication reminders. They can, and those go to the older adults to decide if they want to accept them, and then they'll be put into the system. They can recommend goals like, "Hey, mom, you really need to exercise more. I recommend our best practices recommend 3 physical exercise sessions a week." And if the older adult says yes, then now ElliQ will make it her mission to help you meet those specific goals. When you're not feeling well, with the permission of the older adult, the caregiver will get updates on pain, the pain level, the body part, general feeling, how you're feeling. Their mom's not feeling well for 3 days in a row. Of course, they'll get reporting on which medications they took and didn't take, again, always with the permission of the older adult to share that information. They'll see weekly graphs on engagement levels, on activities, and alerts if there's a deviation from that. We also put a bunch of resources there so they can see resources on like, hey, here's our journey with mild cognitive impairment. What can we expect? Here are resources for us at the local level that we can use to help us, et cetera, et cetera. And my favorite all-time feature of ElliQ is what we call memoir. So ElliQ interviews the older adult, and then she understands their answers and creates a short film with those answers. Now the caregiver can also request those specific memories. So for example, like, "Hey, mom, tell me about the time you met dad," or "I heard you were in Woodstock. I never really heard that story. Tell me about Woodstock," right? Then ElliQ will interview them about that. She'll hear the answers, ask follow-up questions based on what you said, and then you'll get this like asset of a short film on mom's Woodstock story.
Can't tell you everything about Woodstock, but ElliQ is continuing to evolve, of course, here. So tell us what your vision is for all of this in the coming months and even years.
Let me tell you, look, I mean, I wish we could snap our fingers and have our loved ones surrounded by loving and caring family every day for multiple hours a day. Unfortunately, that's not the case in most cases, and it's just not possible to do so. So we see ElliQ as like a gap filler. For the time where the family isn't around, you have your friend around that's only on your side, that keeps your data safe, and is a positive force in your life, takes a real interest and inquisitive interest in you, but also nudges you a little bit towards healthier habits and so on. And I think in the future, we're going to see our homes surrounded by really smart devices. And a lot of innovators are working really hard on the physical device, right? How can it navigate the home or help cook or put groceries away in the cabinets? But they don't really think about this relationship piece. For us to accept technology in our home and to be like weaved into the way we live our lives, it needs to have a relationship with us. It needs to understand us. We need to trust it. It needs to anticipate our needs. It needs to be there and be able to converse with us in a positive way. So I think whether it's going to be ElliQ or other products or the intelligence of ElliQ inside of other products, we're going to see this type of interaction as part of our lives in the near future across the board.
It's interesting. And some of the biggest hurdles that you face, you mentioned that older adults are seemingly very accepting of the technology once they get it. So you've learned that.
Yeah, yes, they are. And the data is amazing. There's also a bunch of research already published done by Duke University and Cornell University and many others showing this, over 90% efficacy at reducing loneliness and improving health outcomes. But I think the challenges are, quite frankly, educating the market that these solutions exist. When we look at government programs at the state or federal level to get them to allocate dollars, there's tons of dollars allocated for physical, like human caregiving tasks and home nurse aides and home health aides, etc. And we have a huge shortage of those in the United States, but there aren't budgets earmarked to use technology to do some of those tasks and allow more people at a much more cost-effective way to experience it. I mean, if you look at the pricing, ElliQ is not expensive. It's $50 or $60 a month depending if you go monthly or annual. So that's 3 cents an hour, okay? Where a home health aide is like $30 an hour. So the economics make a ton of sense. The data is there on the outcome, but getting the system to really be willing to introduce technology takes time. It just takes a bunch of time.
So how can people bring ElliQ into their homes?
Very easy. They go to ElliQ.com. And if they write "I know door" all caps, they'll get a discount, and they'll get it shipped to them within a day or two. I think really surprising to me, over 75% of the older adults self-install ElliQ. They don't need any help. And as soon as they plug her in and enter the Wi-Fi password, then she teaches them how to use the product and become champions with the product. For the other 25%, we staff a call center and we just help them do that. Or of course, the son or daughter or a family member can come and use this as quality time and help them set it up and have some fun. There's lots of jokes and humor in the setup and the onboarding process done by the system. So it's really, really easy to do. Just like go on the website and try one for free for 30 days.
And you've had brilliant partners through the years. So tell us about the government programs and the funding, and we certainly hope that will continue.
Yeah, there are amazing programs available, and I also hope that will continue to be funded. Our first kind of partnerships were based on the older adults or the OAA funding on the federal government that moves to the states, usually for the Office of the Aging or down to the AAA level. In New York, we had an immense pleasure to work with Greg Olson and his team and roll out ElliQ statewide. There are now hundreds and hundreds of ElliQs rolled out. We have a waiting list of over 1,000 people waiting for their ElliQ. Just budget is not forthcoming yet. No fault of the New York State team. But we now have AAAs all over the country that deploy ElliQ. I think the problem is the way we allocate funds in the US is still huge amounts of money on MLTSS and very, very little money on essentially prevention, right? When you give money into the community to help people stay independent in their own home, then you don't need to spend Medicaid dollars on LTSS. And yet, the vast majority goes to that and not to prevention. So they're doing amazing work. The social workers, the case managers, running the senior centers, providing home delivered meals, providing ElliQs. But it is a drop in the bucket compared to the cost that this population has on the taxpayer. We also are starting to see Medicaid deploy ElliQ and pay for ElliQ with the goal of helping people stay at home or get reintegrated back into the community. So if they already need to go into a nursing home, making sure it's not a one-way ticket, bringing them back into the community and bringing them an ElliQ into their home to help provide companionship and help them stay healthier and active and independent in their own home once they move back. So those are very, very interesting programs we're starting to see in different states.
Just terrific. The website for more info is ELLIQ.com. Mary?
Well, the work and the progress are just remarkable, Dor. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast, and keep up the great.
Thanks for having me. And keep up the great work you're doing to help educate people on technologies for older adults.
Mary, with this episode, we are launching something new, a spotlight segment with one of the great innovators in age tech, the founder of CareYaya, Neil Shah. Hi, Neil.
Hey, Fred. Hey, Mary. Thanks so much for having us on.
And Neil, it's always great to see you. You're really helping to change the world when it comes to caregiving. And I think we should start out with a description of how that is happening.
Sure. So we're running a, kind of a next generation caregiver platform, connecting over 30,000 wonderful health career focused college students across America to care for older adults, many of whom living at home with dementia. Our mission is to provide affordable care to the population. So we run the platform with no fees or markups. Families book and pay the students directly. And then our mission is to expand the care workforce by getting today's kind of younger generation involved in seeing kind of like both the joys and the challenges and the opportunities in aging and caregiving. It's really a pathway program for students who want to pursue future clinical careers and everything ranging from medicine to physician assistancy, nursing, social work, physical therapy, and other such careers. And many of the students do it during undergraduate years in college or even during gap years post-college as a way to kind of give back and help people in their community. So yeah, it's really awesome. We're scaled all over the country in many cities, including San Francisco in your area, New York and the New Jersey metro area, Fred, where you are, as well as Washington, D.C., parts of Florida, Texas, North Carolina, where we started. And yeah, it's gone national. So it's been really fun.
That is just amazing. And of course, it doesn't take much to imagine the contrast between the caregivers that are going through CareYaya and those who might be working for agencies or whatever otherwise. Neil, let's give everyone more insight really into this secret ingredient, which is the caregivers that you're working with. And you've got a special guest.
Yes, here we have Dezarae Stone, one of our best and most wonderful student caregivers on the platform. So yeah, Dezarae.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So let's learn more about you, your motivation, and why you think this approach is so successful.
I've been caregiving through CareYaya for about 3 years now, but I've been a family caregiver for over 10 years after my grandma had a traumatic brain injury from a car accident. And only 2 years after that, developed into early onset Alzheimer's when she was only 52 years old. So at an early age, I was very interested in neurology and the research behind the Alzheimer's disease, but she passed away, unfortunately, when I was an undergrad at UNC Chapel Hill studying neurology. And I kind of felt a lack of motivation after that because she was my reason to keep going and to study what I was doing. But CareYaya came along as a friend, referenced me for it, and it was just life-changing. A sense of purpose again, and I felt like I was taking care of my grandma.
Wow. And well, God bless you for all the good work that you do. And through CareYaya, you've helped to care for so many others. So tell us about some of the relationships you developed. And I'm excited to hear that you're going into gerontology.
Well, I'm still working with some of the first patients I started with 3 years ago. Usually once a week, we'll cook a great big meal together. And it's been so fun because I get to incorporate my hobbies. I've always loved cooking and spend quality time with her. And additionally, most of my patients have dementia themselves. So it's so fulfilling to see some of the same characteristics and personality traits my grandma had. And some of her favorite things were to watch childhood shows and cartoons because they almost kind of revert back to childlike tendencies. So it almost feels like being a kid again. And I just look forward to every session I have with them.
And of course, you tell other students about your experiences too. And I'm sure hopefully it's contagious.
Absolutely. I tell everyone I can any chance I get.
So professionally, what do you think this experience is going to mean for you in your coming career? And as we've hinted, you're headed into a master's program.
I am, yeah. CareYaya really changed the trajectory of my future professionally because prior to joining it, I was kind of uncertain in what I wanted to do. I considered medical school, I considered PhD research, but now I'm extremely interested in gerontology and I'm pursuing my double master's degree in gerontology and social work with the intentions of being a geriatric clinical social worker.
That's so impressive. So Neil, tell us more about the recruitment process and how the concept is growing.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I mean, it's growing a lot through, like as Dezarae mentioned, word of mouth. A lot of students are telling students. Also, a lot of professors and pre-health career advisors are reaching out to us. I think there's a big gap in people who want to pursue clinical careers is that the ability to get hands-on experience is quite limited during your undergraduate years. And many students we find are taking what's called a gap year, or two, like after they graduate, before they go to graduate school, sometimes almost upwards of 2 or 3 years to get the relevant experiences. So whenever students or professors hear that there's a convenient way to do that during undergraduate, they'll often reach out and say, hey, I'd love to recommend some of my top students in the program, or students will recommend other students. So the recruitment process has really gone viral through word of mouth. We don't do any kind of like advertising or marketing. Students seek us out. Professors at other universities seek us out and ask us, can you build it? Our whole expansion to San Francisco area was when, professors at Berkeley, Stanford, San Francisco State, other universities, Santa Clara, et cetera, reached out and said, hey, we'd love to bring the program here. So that's been really awesome. And it's really solving a big unmet need for them, which is ability to get experience flexible to their schedules.
And this is at a time when there's such a crisis in caregiving that we've all been reading about.
Yeah, I mean, there's, that a lot of research suggests that there's a shortage already of over 2 million more caregivers are needed in the economy. And by 2030, as our population ages, you'll need 5.9 million additional caregivers. And, it's actually, the trend is the other way. People are leaving the care workforce, so people aren't eagerly joining. So, we think we single-handedly have brought 30,000 new caregivers into the care economy. And it's like a pretty small operation, an early stage startup. We think we have a potential at scale to bring in upwards of 1 million. There's 20 million college students in America, and we're achieving pretty high market shares at some of the universities in which we're operating. So as we scale the program everywhere nationally over the next 2 to 3 years, we hope we can get about 1 million or so, which would be a huge kind of drop in the bucket, so to speak, of towards solving the caregiver workforce shortage. And I think all the way through, not just caregiving, but there's a shortage of geriatric social workers, as Dezarae will be one day. There's a shortage of geriatric physicians. There's a shortage of physical therapists. I think there's a healthcare workforce shortage across the system. And with our aging population, we're going to need more healthcare workers. So not only are the students doing caregiving during their undergraduate years, but we are encouraging and setting up and creating a pathway program for the students to kind of pursue future clinical careers that are also in short supply.
This is so inspiring. Dezarae, I can understand how everyone would want you to visit, and what a great path for you. Such an inspiring story. It's a great way to kick off our spotlight segment. Thank you both so much for joining us, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Fred. Really appreciate the opportunity.
That will do it for this edition. We want to thank Neil, Dezarae, Dor, and Lawrence for taking time with us. Thanks as well to our sponsor, GetSetUp, your online platform that celebrates every older adult, offering opportunities for physical, mental, and social growth. Learn more at GetSetUp.com. Thank you for joining us as well, and remember you can always find us at maryfurlong.com/podcast.